Kart, sponsored by Honda.
The biggest single attraction of the Wisconsin State Fair.
Milwaukee is a track with a great racing past.
And they're off.
In spite of its parochial nature, the track is a hotbed of racing action, a favorite with drivers and fans. One Montoya might have won Indy, but plenty of rivals aim to steal his limelight. The Milwaukee Mile is about to enter the 21st century. Hello and welcome to blue sky and sunshine. Yes, it's sunny here in Milwaukee this time for the postponed Miller Lite 225. Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw with you to bring you the race action, which is going to take place in a few minutes' time. I'm glad to say the rain from yesterday has cleared away. We had some rain here this morning, but now you can see for yourselves the blue sky, a little bit of cloud still around, but no forecast of any rain this afternoon. And that's great news, Jeremy. We've actually got the chance for a race to get underway.
Better late than never, Ben, and I think we're in for a fantastic race this afternoon. All sorts of intriguing stories in here. As you can see there, that nice blue sky. A very good crowd on hand here as well, considering it's a Monday. I think might be quite a few people missing work today, but they're going to be, I think, witness to a tremendous race this afternoon.
Now then, let's take a detailed look at how they line up for today's race. Juan Montoya starting in pole position then. It's his third pole position of the year as he chases the first win of 2000. Dario Franchitti enjoying his first front row of the year in his starting position. Patrick Carpentier well up in his second race back from injury, and Gilles de Ferran, the winner last week, of course, in Nazareth.
Fifth fastest in qualifying, Christian Fittipaldi. That's a great effort. He was only 16th in practice. Paul Tracy, a two-time winner here in Milwaukee on row 4. Roberto Moreno, another great effort for Patrick Racing. And Mauricio Gugelmin coming off a second place last week.
Max Papis, winner from Homestead, needs a decent result in Miller home territory here. Michael Andretti alongside him has won 5 times at this racetrack. Tony Kanaan and Helio Castroneves join each other on row 6. The two friendly Brazilians will battle from there.
0.2 of a second would have put Alex Tagliani on the second row. That's how close it is. Jimmy Vasser, he crashed in qualifying and had a problem too in the morning warm-up today. Oriol Servier on row 8 alongside Kenny Brecht. He was oversteer in practice, set him back.
17th on the grid, it's Mark Blundell and then Tarso Marquez in the only Swift chassis in the event. And then we go back to row 10 to find Adrian Fernandez, so watch out for any progress from him. Now, Shinji Nakano had an accident in the warm-up, but he is okay. He will be racing.
On row 11, Cristiano De Mata. That's very disappointing. He thought he was going to have a good weekend here. 2 fourth-place finishes not too long ago. Michel Jourdain Jr. alongside him. On his own at the back, Luis Garcia Jr. for Arciero Project Racing.
Barry Green keeping an eye on things down in the pit. He's got his men starting 2nd and 6th. Paul Tracy starts 6th today, and you must not count him out of this. He loves this track. He's led every time he has raced here at Milwaukee. That's a pretty impressive achievement, and he's won it a couple of times, including last year, of course. Now the car's beginning to pair up. The pace car has headed back towards the pit lane. We are getting set for the start of the Miller Lite 225. The fans are on their feet in the grandstands as at last, a day late, the race is getting prepared. I think they might yellow it off. That was not a clean getaway at all for Franchitti, but it's green anyway. Franchitti slow away. Carpentier trying to get past Montoya. Franchitti now trying to get round the outside of Carpentier and back into the second place that he had from qualifying, and he does that. So Franchitti might have been slow initially, but he has got back into second. Carpentier is there in 3rd place. In 4th place is Gilles de Ferran, and de Ferran trying to get back round the outside of Carpentier.
Wow, yeah, that was a good move there by Gilles de Ferran. He wasn't able to pull it off on the first lap there, but he's obviously very, very racy this afternoon.
Helio Castroneves going around the outside of Mauricio Gugelmin at turn number 2. You can see the other Team Penske entry there. That was Castroneves. He's in 11th place at the moment, but up front, good getaway from Montoya, and Franchitti making up for what was initially a very slow getaway to get himself into 2nd place. Tracy under attack from Andretti. Michael comes down the inside into turn 1. Tracy trying to shut the door. These two have had their moments in the past, and Andretti could not quite find the space there.
Yeah, good try there by Mikey, these two. These are 2 of the hardest races in this series. Neither of them gives an inch unless they really have to. And Paul didn't have to on that occasion, so he held on to that 5th position.
Across the line, 3 laps completed by the flying Colombian Juan Montoya. Keep an eye on Michael Andretti, however, 5 times winner of the race here at Milwaukee. It just seems to suit his driving style, he tells us. He loves this place. He liked it even more in the old days when it was very bumpy, and that seemed to suit him even more. 4 years ago, the track was resurfaced. It has leveled it out a little bit, but he's still always a challenger here. Behind him is Christian Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi lies in 7th place. Behind him, the Miller Lite car, the blue and white machine of Max Papis, and on we go now with Max Papis as we head up the backstretch.
Up in there on board, he goes down into the corner, and you can just hear that he's very smoothly on the throttle there, very early stage of the race, 220 laps still to go, so he doesn't want to push anything, he just wants to get that car nicely balanced, so he doesn't have to push it too hard.
Average lap speeds already, even with a full tank of fuel, over 160 miles an hour. Average, remember, as we take a look at Maurizio Guterman, who was fastest in the shortened warm-up that was run earlier on today. So Guterman is running in 9th place at the moment, but he was very quick this morning. And remember, he comes off the back of a 2nd place finish at Nazareth last week. Now, we focus on our race leader. It's Juan Montoya, and we've seen him up front a number of occasions this year already, but not up front when it matters, when the checkered flag has come out. He's led more laps than anybody else. He was dominant in Motegi in Japan. He was in great form in Nazareth last week as well. But at the moment, Dario Franchitti staying very much within challenging distance.
That's right, just about 15 or so car lengths behind him, probably just track him at this stage. Dario's car still a little bit of understeer in the middle of the corner. They're not quite able to get down to the apex, and you will try and do that more so in the race than you would in qualifying, when they tend to run a slightly higher line. Although as the race does go on, I think we'll see some of the cars moving up, as they say, a little bit in the groove on the racetrack, just running maybe a half car or so away from the normal apex.
Let's watch Jimmy Vasser's line here. Up towards turn 3. Let's watch how low he gets into the apex here. Tucks it in. As we say, not running that high at the moment. Keeping it fairly tight through the corner. We switch our attention now to the yellow and white car of Kenny Breck. 14th position for Kenny, and he started in 16th place, so he's made up a couple of places from his rather poor grid position. And as we mentioned, he was going well in the practice sessions here. Didn't quite work for him in qualifying, but he's now got an opportunity. He's chasing after Tony Kanaan and Jimmy Vasser. The three of them really quite close together at this early stage.
Yeah, and in front of Jimmy Vasser, who of course was starting off in Juan Montoya's backup car, and so he had very little time. He only had really an out lap and an in lap at the end of the warm-up session this morning due to a fuel pressure problem in the car he was supposed to start after crashing his original primary car in qualifying, and certainly he's having a little bit of a hard time keeping up with those in front. He's fallen some way back from Elio Castro Neves, but Jimmy Vasser still running in 12th position.
Just behind that group, being led by Jimmy, there is Adrian Fernandez. So Fernandez is running 15th. The blue and white car behind him is the Canadian rookie, Alex Tagliani, who was so impressive at the Rio race. A race, of course, that Fernandez went on to win when Tagliani spun in a cloud of smoke towards the end of the race. Up front, Juan Montoya, and would you believe it, even after 12 laps, they're beginning to catch the slower cars. Remember, it is only 1 mile around this track, 1.032 miles to be precise, a lap time of around 23 seconds at this point in the race on a fairly heavy fuel load. It does not take very long before you begin to catch the back markers.
That's right. So they're running a pretty good clip. Even the back markers at the tail end of the field, they're running laps around 24 seconds or high 23s. And Montoya is lapping, his last lap around was 23.2, the one before that 23.1. So about 0.8 of a second difference in the first to last.
The first car that Juan is coming up to lap here is the Japanese driver, Shinji Nakano, who crashed in the warm-up a little earlier on today. So he's out in his backup car, and Nakano, who crashed here in testing as well, obviously has a little bit of an affinity for the concrete wall here at Milwaukee. He seemed to be okay, but I'm sure that he will be taking a little steady, keeps well out of the way, and Montoya goes past.
Yeah, it does. Good move there by Nakano. Certainly that was going to give Franchitti perhaps an opportunity to close up on Montoya, but Nakano doing a job there, just leaving the line clear for Montoya to go through. Very good work by that experienced Japanese driver.
Now we're looking down at Franchitti as he closes up on Nakano. and he'll hope to get past Nakano on the run up here. This is the backstretch towards turn 3, going past the houses that back onto this Milwaukee track. And we'll look at the gap there between Franchitti and Montoya. Well, it was 0.8 of a second before he got held up behind Nakano, but it's now up to 1.5 seconds. So you can see that's changed things around. And Franchitti's got to watch out because Carpentier right on his gearbox, breathing down his neck. So Franchitti needs to find a way past Shinji Nakano fairly rapidly here if he's not to allow Carpentier an opportunity to sneak into second place.
Yeah, absolutely right. And looking back down there, we're getting fairly strung out here farther back. There's not really any close racing until we get back to the group behind Jimmy Vasser. Vasser's still in 12th place. Right behind him, Tony Kanaan and Kenny Breck.
Not far behind them, Gilles de Ferran is still running in 4th. And he seems fairly comfortable at that sort of pace at the moment. 23.4. In fact, Montoya's last lap was also at 23.4 as he goes across the line. And Franchitti's still stuck behind Nakano. So Montoya really made it work for himself earlier on there by getting past Nakano, the blue and white car that is, very quickly indeed when he came up to lap him. And now Franchitti's got stuck in that little bit of a rut. And you often find this situation that if you don't use the momentum with which you're catching one of these back markers and get past them quickly, you then get stuck in this rut of following them and actually finding it very difficult to pick up that extra speed and overtake. And I think that's the situation that Franchitti's in, and now Carpentier really is tucked in right behind the Scotsman as they head up through turn 3 and 4.
Yeah, still unable to find a way past here. And Nakano, he's right behind Luis Garcia. That, of course, is a battle.
Look at this. Carpentier has got down the inside of Franchitti. So Carpentier takes over second place. He had enough of sitting behind Franchitti. Franchitti trying to stay with him around the outside, but it's not quite enough. And so Carpentier it is who moves up into second place. Patrick Carpentier, who is back after injuring his wrist. Remember, he broke his wrist a few weeks ago now in an accident at home, not in the car at all, but an accident at home. Look at de Ferran. De Ferran also having a little look at getting past Franchitti, and Gilles de Ferran, the winner From Nazareth last week, looks as though he's got another very rapid car for another 1 mile oval.
That's right, this is great stuff. This is what 1 mile ovals are all about. Bull ring, they call these tracks, and it really is the non-stop action throughout the field. Great stuff, and we can see that there goes Montoya out of the picture. So look at the lead he already has over the second place car. There he was, the blue car of Patrick Carpentier, and right behind him, Dario Franchitti, Gilles de Ferran, and Paul Tracy.
Well, just to let you know that by getting past Nakano quickly, Montoya has opened up a 4-second advantage. It was only about 1 second, and now up to 4 seconds already. So that just shows you how important it was for Juan Montoya to get past. Dario Franchitti now going past Nakano, and de Ferran follows him through, and he does get through. And it's interesting to note that Dario Franchitti was talking earlier this weekend about these wings that they use on this kind of track now. Oh, and look at Michael Andretti diving down the inside of Tracy, that is. That's slightly further back. Tracy in 5th place, Michael in 6th, side by side. Andretti on the inside in the black car. Looks as though he should have the move made this time. So into 5th place goes Michael Andretti.
Good pass there again. Good racing by these two. Paul Tracy decided this time that Michael had the better run, and no point in crashing like those two did. You might remember last year at Chicago Motor Speedway when neither was willing to give an inch. This time, Tracy did decide to give that inch. That's all Michael Andretti needed.
We got a spinner. I think it's Nakano again.
Yes, it is, Ben. Yeah, absolutely. It was Nakano who spun it, coming off turn 4. The yellow is out, and a little bit of respite finally for these guys. I think most of them will be pretty grateful for that.
26 laps have been completed, so it's very early stages in this race as yet. And Shinji Nakano managed to keep it off the wall remarkably there. Let's take a look in the background, see what happened. Well, he lost it, funny, quite a way out of turn number 4 there. Strange place to lose it, but he was far enough away from the wall that he just broadsided it for quite a few yards at well over 140 miles an hour, I would have thought, up at that point on the circuit. Got it back together, all straightened up and rejoined the field. But the yellows were out by then. Juan Montoya is our early race leader. We're about to get racing underway again here as Montoya leads them round out of turn number 4. This will be to complete lap number 31. It is Carpentier in the blue and white car chasing, and watch out for Michael Andretti. Fittipaldi.
Yeah, Christian Fittipaldi looking to the inside of Paul Tracy, not quite able to pull it off, Ben.
No, Andretti already ahead of Tracy, and Fittipaldi, his teammate, now trying to do the same. Papis also on the move, trying to get past Fittipaldi. That doesn't quite work either, and you can see a bit of work going on the steering wheel there for Max as he tries to sort it all out. Bit sideways, coming out. The tyres are not fully up to temperature yet because they've only just been let loose on the green flag, and you can see the cars moving around more when those tyres are not up to temperature.
Castor Nevers lost a couple of positions there at the restart. He, of course, on fresh tyres. He lost out to Jimmy Vasser and Roberto Moreno. Of course, they're all on fresh tyres as well because they did make a pit stop under that caution.
Montoya, race leader. He had a 4-second advantage before that first caution. That, of course, has been reduced to virtually nothing again as a result of the yellow flag. But he won't be worried about that. Last week at the Indy 500, he drove a superbly judged race, just pulling out enough each time that when they did get bunched up again, then he was happy to sit up the front of the queue, and each time just being able to pull away, making use of some tremendous pit work from the Ganassi crew, and that was how Montoya came through to take an historic victory at the Indy 500. Can he do the same today at Milwaukee? Well, we're going to find out over the next 191 laps that are left to go here. Michael Andretti, one to watch though, in 5th place and running some pretty rapid lap times. 23.3 was his last lap. The race leader of Montoya did a 23.1. So this lead group all running very much the same pace. Nobody seems to be making any special moves as yet. There is race leader, and look at how Patrick Carpentier has very much stayed with him over this last stint from the last caution period. Yeah, not only that, in fact, he is in actual fact pulling in the leader Montoya. He's closed that gap down from about 1.2 seconds when they last lapped Luis Garcia for the second time, down to about 0.5 of a second. So he's pulling in about 1/10 of a second a lap is Patrick Carpentier. And look, you can see the difference there. It's much less than it was last time around. Carpentier definitely closing in on the race leader, Juan Montoya, and they are coming up behind that group of tail-end cars. And there's a group of them there at the back, particularly Jourdain and Tagliani, who lost a couple of positions in that first round of pit stops. So this is going to be fun. Keep an eye on Montoya's progress here as he comes up behind Carpentier's teammate to lap him. Also, we should be expecting, as I mentioned, pit stops not too far off. They've still got a little way before they need to make their first pit stop. I'm sure that will be figuring in the team's plans very soon. Montoya heads up the backstretch into turns 3 and 4 with Tagliani just ahead. But remember, as Jeremy was saying, that in fact this group of cars, like many of the others, are lapping not much slower than Montoya, in spite of him almost coming up to lap them. And that's going to make his job pretty difficult in terms of finding a way past.
Far back there, I see that Aurel Servia has found a way past Tony Kanaan, so he's having a nice drive today.
Servia, that brings him up into 10th position. 11th now Kanaan, and in 12th spot, the first of the drivers who stopped earlier on today, Roberto Moreno. So Moreno could be in good shape later in this race. We'll just have to wait and see how that pans out.
Yeah, now this is going to be interesting here with Carpentier there right behind Juan Montoya, and Alex Tagliani, Carpentier's teammate, right ahead of Montoya. You can see there the two blue cars sandwiching the red one of that red one in the middle is the race leader Juan Montoya, and he's about 7 or 8 car lengths behind Tagliani, who does not want to go a lap down.
No, that's right. Remember that if you can stay on the lead lap in this form of racing, then you've always got a chance to the end of the day. You do not have to let the leader pass, and it's sort of accepted to a certain extent that if you're on the lead lap, you can defend your position. It's something that caused a bit of a ruck, actually, between Michael Andretti and Juan Montoya after Nazareth. Montoya came up to try and put a lap on Michael. Michael didn't want to go a lap down, and Montoya got a little upset about it. But basically, it is a fairly accepted system that if you're trying to stay on the lead lap, you have every right to defend. If you're 1 or more laps down already, then it's up to you, really, to try and get out of the way of the leaders.
That's exactly right. And now up into 3rd place You can see the leaders come out there. The red car there is Montoya. Right behind him is Carpoccio. Look in third place now is Gilles de Ferran. He got past Franchitti on the previous lap and pulled away very, very quickly.
Yes, he's really shot forwards there, the man who won last week in Nazareth. There it is, that Reynard Honda in the Penske colours. Let's take a look at the replay of Gilles de Ferran getting past Franchitti. De Ferran really slipstream very quickly up the backstretch, found almost another gear there. And when I say that, I wonder if in fact he either did use another gear and allowed himself to use more revs, used a bit more fuel, or perhaps just richened up the fuel mixture briefly to give him that sort of overtaking performance. They can do that on a button sometimes, just richens up the fuel, gives them a little bit more power, and he may have decided that it was the right time to use that, in spite of the fact that they will be looking to save fuel a little bit at this time in the race.
Yeah, that's interesting to find out. We've got 68 laps in the books now, and another, certainly within 10 laps, I would say, we'll be looking at pit stops.
Across the line once again, and de Ferran was slightly quicker, although Montoya with the fastest lap on that previous lap. Montoya still unable to do anything about Tagliani just ahead of him, and he's still got Patrick Carpentier in the blue and white car tucked in behind. Great to see this sort of form from Patrick Carpentier, who's had to sit out a number of races, making his return at Nazareth last week where he qualified 10th, failed to finish unfortunately with a mechanical problem. Sat on pole position here a couple of years ago to Carpentier, and now running in second place. De Ferran right behind him. As you can see, the gap between De Ferran and the leader Montoya really has closed down over the last few laps, and he's keeping Carpentier pretty honest here. Carpentier, previous best result in the Champ Car Series, a second place, which was way back in 1997 when he won the Rookie of the Year title. We're looking at Shinji Nakano, and they're actually changing the rear springs on this car. Very much as you said, Jeremy, what they're trying to do is use it now as a test session and get him up on the pace, I think.
That's exactly right, Ben. As you said, he's lacking mileage because of that crash he had here in testing. He missed a couple of races because of it, and he crashed again this morning, so he's clearly not happy with the setup of that car, so they might as well get out now there and learn as much as they can for when they come back to the bull rings next year, really. The only other short oval track, the 1 mile oval track, is at Chicago in a couple of months' time.
The leader summary shows that our man up front, the man as Chip Ganassi likes to call him, has been up front since the start. He began in pole position, got away from Dario Franchitti at the start. Franchitti recovered his ground. He dropped almost to fourth at one stage, back up to second. But since then, Franchitti's lost those several places again. So we now see Montoya, Carpentier, and then Gilles de Ferran with Franchitti still in fourth, being pressurized a little bit now, I have to say, by Michael Andretti. And then there's about a second gap back from Andretti to the championship leader, Paul Tracy, who's having a fairly comfortable run in sixth place, a fairly untroubled run, and I think he'll be looking forward to the pit stops that might make a difference, as Paul Tracy has one of the consistently fastest pit crews down there in pit lane. Now Gilles de Ferran coming into the pits, the first of this lead group to make it into the pit lane, and it's on lap number 76. Now, if he managed to keep it at that sort of lap numbers all the way through this race, he would just about make it on 2 pit stops, Jeremy. It's just about the right split for 2 pit stops if he can keep up this sort of fuel economy. They did have some yellow laps to help him in this first stint, and it looks as though the wheels are on, just waiting for fuel, and out he goes, 12.8 seconds. And he had to wait a second there for Tony Kanaan coming in, slotting in front of him in the pit box just ahead.
Yeah, so that could be crucial. All those leaders were very, very close together, weren't they? So it's going to be interesting to see how that will affect him. And Michael Andretti also in the pits there, because he's in the 6X car as well, because he crashed heavily here on Saturday morning, had to take over the backup car. But it looks like a good clean pit stop for Michael Andretti.
We gather Franchitti's coming in as well, but what about Montoya? He hasn't come in yet, so that shows that he's getting good fuel mileage from the Toyota engine. Dario Franchitti is in, a bit of a front wing change on that car, so he's obviously not fully happy with the handling on it. Perhaps as the fuel load lightened up there, the car wasn't handling so well. I think that's pretty much what he was saying from Friday. On full tanks, the car was great. As it got lighter, it got a little looser, a little more difficult to drive. Into the pits now comes Christian Fittipaldi. And of course, all these drivers are stopping under green flag, and this will mean that it will promote the drivers who stopped under yellow earlier on, but those drivers will be looking at a 3-stop race, so it will all even itself out a little later in this race. We don't expect them to be making any changes to the setup. 12.2 seconds stop, but a little slow getting away.
Yeah, but a bunch of the leaders coming in. Paul Tracy came in that time around. Misha Gujamin's still out on track. The two leaders, Montoya, as you say, the Toyota getting brilliant fuel consumption, but he's really under pressure from Carpentier to go down the front straight. And Montoya, actually, look at him there. You can just see him holding off Carpentier going into turn one.
Well spotted there, Jeremy, and Montoya under increasing pressure from Carpentier. Neither of these two have been into the pits yet. Surely they must be coming in soon. They must be getting great fuel mileage, but even so, they have to be heading into the pits fairly soon. The laws of physics dictate that they can't go forever. Now, Carpentier is coming in, but Montoya stays out. So Carpentier coming in, his Ford engine needs some more fuel to be able to continue on, and Montoya stays out a little longer. He really is conserving the fuel in the number one car at the moment. Let's watch Patrick's stop.
Interesting too. Jimmy Vasser also is staying out there, so he's getting good fuel consumption as well. There's Carpentier's stop, 12.5 seconds. That's about average for these guys. They work so hard on their pit stops. All of these teams, they have at least 1 day of pit stop practice per week away from the racetrack, and with 20 races every year, they have plenty of practice on race weekends as well. So a great stop there by Carpentier. Now we will be looking for Montoya to come in, I'm sure, within a lap or two.
I would expect so, Jeremy. Let's see. Yes, he's coming in this time. Now, he's made it all the way to lap 83. Remember, Gilles de Ferran came in on lap 75. That's a full 8 laps further than he's managed to get on the same amount of fuel. That's impressive stuff indeed from Montoya. It means that he's been able to run at a high pace at a reasonably lean fuel setting. And that bodes well for later in the race. So, pit camera on board our right-hand front man, Rob Hill. That's gone on cleanly. Let's just see whether the rest of the pit stop goes well. No problem. He gets out safely. A little bit of wheel spin. Watches the speed coming out of the pits. They can accelerate once they get into that apron area. No speed limit there. And then hard on the power as they head up the back stretch. And Montoya rejoins. But now it means that our new race leader is the man of several cars that stopped early in this race. As I mentioned to you, there were a number of cars that stopped under the first caution. Now they, of course, stopped under yellow. They stayed on the lead lap at that point, and they now all feature at the top of our standings. So, let me tell you, Roberto Moreno is race leader. Jimmy Vasser, who stopped earlier on, is in second. Castro Neves, he stopped earlier on, he's third. Kenny Breck is fourth. Adrian Fernandez fifth. Mark Blundell in sixth. Cristiano D'Amata in seventh. Jourdain in eighth. Tagliani in ninth. And Michael Andretti in 10th position. So it really has completely changed the look of this race because of some of those drivers taking the advantage earlier on of that early yellow flag. And as they come across the line this time, there is our new race leader, Roberto Moreno. And he also one of the more economical drivers, of course. So we'll keep an eye on his progress as things settle down. Interesting to note also that in spite of the pit stops, Andretti got ahead of Montoya. So Montoya's come out in 11th place behind Michael Andretti, who made a late pit stop. So Andretti's pit stop on that last round must have been something pretty stunning, and it's put Andretti ahead of Montoya. Welcome back to Milwaukee, where Roberto Moreno is race leader after 94 laps, with Jimmy Vasser second, Castro Neves third. Now, these three cars are amongst those who stopped early on in this race, and we were expecting them to come in for their second stop at about 10 to 15 laps time, and then that, of course, will reset the field a little bit. But, as I mentioned before, look at 10th and 11th. Andretti ahead of Montoya after their first pit stop. Also, 14th, Tracy ahead of Franchitti. So Paul Tracy gained quite a bit in that first round of pit stops for the lead group, but Michael was the man who really gained the most there. Montoya perhaps struggling to match his pace. Look at Montoya and Andretti, and I think Montoya's just got past Andretti there. So Montoya regaining the ground that he lost effectively in his first pit stop. He's got himself back to the top of all of those cars that stopped later. Kenny Kenny Breck now perhaps challenging for the lead before they make their pit stops here. Breck up the inside, up into turn number 3. This is for the change of lead for the race. Breck takes it over. Fernandez is running in 3rd place. The 3 of them due in the pits fairly soon, but Breck trying to escape a little bit before they have to make their pit stops, and Moreno struggling a little bit for pace here, has dropped down to 3rd in short order as Adrian Fernandez goes past him as well. There's our new leader then, Kenny Breck, the Swede. Indy 500 winner last year, but in his first season of Champ Car racing here this year, and had a good result last time out in Nazareth. Finished on the podium in 3rd place at Nazareth, and very, very quick here. Now, in comes Moreno. Bit of a slow lap that last one as he got passed by both Breck and Fernandez, and now heading in towards his Patrick Racing crew for refueling and new tyres.
And I would hazard a guess to say that car began to go a little bit loose towards the end of that stint, so will they make a change to this car? Also into the pits, one of the players' cars. Oh, and a problem there. Looks like there's some sort of fuel leakage there. That is the car of, I think, Alex Tagliani. Yep. And he vacated the premises pretty rapidly there. The thing about methanol fuel is you cannot see it when it does catch fire there. So there's good news and bad news. That and clearly somebody there seems to have taken a bit of a tumble. And,
I think it's Alex. No, it's not Alex. It's a refueler there who couldn't get the fuel pipe out. Apparently, they had a problem disengaging the fuel hose, and that spread methanol everywhere, and that's what caused the scare for everybody down there in pit lane. So Tagliani suffering a disastrous pit stop. Looks as though any fire that might have started has been quickly extinguished.
Kenny Breck has stalled the engine again. That's amazing. It cost him a great finish in Motegi, I think it was it, when he stalled the engine in the pit lane there, and he's done it again, Kenny Breck.
Yes, very strange. In fact, he was shaking his head from pretty early on during that pit stop, so whether the engine died on him as he came into stop in the pit box, I don't know, but something bad happened for Kenny Breck. Now, all of those guys who stopped earlier have been into the pits, so our new race leader is Juan Montoya once again. Replay here of what happened to Tagliani. Watch the fuel man. Oh, a nasty situation there indeed, because the fuel was still engaged, and when Alex selected gear, oh, methanol being sprayed all over the place there. Very scary situation indeed. And not very nice at all, but very quickly dealt with by the crew, I have to say. Did a great job to sort it out.
Yeah, they did, and clearly, I'm not sure whether he was waved out there. We couldn't really see whether he's being waved out. Generally, the guy in the right front tyre there who waved him out. The crew chief on that car is George Klotz, and those guys are doing a really good job, and I don't know who them. Somebody made there was a miscommunication somewhere there clearly, and we hope that no injuries there.
117 laps have been completed with just over half distance here at Milwaukee. Montoya's back out front again, chased by Andretti, Carpentier, de Ferran and Tracy in the top 5. Now then, we believe that one or two of these leaders are due in pretty soon here. There is Michael Andretti running in 2nd place, 2.2 seconds, the gap between himself and Montoya. Not much to shout about, but just that little bit of a cushion perhaps for Montoya when he makes his 2nd and final pit stop coming up within the next laps or two. Now Montoya driving with Toyota power, of course, and look at the graphic there showing how many laps have been led by Toyota this year in spite of not taking a victory. 3 wins to Ford and 2 wins to Honda.
Yeah, for sure it's not going to be long before that happens. It might be just a matter of about, I don't know, 40 minutes or so, because the way Juan Montoya is going right now doesn't look like anybody can catch him. There's a lot of people running similar lap times, but nobody running significantly faster than our race leader Juan Montoya. There is Lee White, he is the president of Toyota Racing Development. He runs the show for Toyota on this side of the pond in Costa Mesa in Southern California. And Lee White has been a big factor. His organizational skills, he spent a lot of time with Roush Racing in Trans Am operations and in IMSA GTO, and he's a really very well organized character. And he has really brought a lot to this Toyota program, no question about it.
Montoya continues around, but in comes 2nd place man now, Michael Andretti. 2nd and final stop for Michael Andretti, and he has come in a little earlier than Montoya again. Now last time this worked to his benefit because he was able to get out and get ahead of Montoya. I wonder if they can repeat that sort of performance. A little bit of a front wing change. He's been reporting that the car's been pushing somewhat. A little bit of understeer. He gets away cleanly, and Michael Andretti setting off well. That's Tony Kanaan, who's also been into the pits. Gilles de Ferran also coming into the pits at this point. So this lead group of cars deciding to come in on lap number 154. I wonder how much further Montoya is going to want to push it before he makes his final stop as well. 155 laps now. His lead is over Patrick Carpentier, who's now in second, with Michael having stopped, and the advantage over Carpentier, some 3.6 seconds. Paul Tracy still runs in third place. Dario Franchitti is in fourth. Fifth place for Max Papis now, and sixth for Fittipaldi. And as they come around, Dario Franchitti into the pits this time. I also noticed that Carpentier was a little closer to Juan Montoya that lap around, so Carpentier taking advantage. New set of tyres on board Dario Franchitti's car. Away he goes. Looks like a good clean stop from Team Green there. I wonder if that will gain him some time on his teammate Paul Tracy. The two of them have been running fairly close company here all afternoon. He accelerates out of the pit lane. Meanwhile, there is Juan Montoya still to make his final pit stop, and on his 160th lap here, some 65 laps still to go. Surely not long before he comes in. Christian Fittipaldi coming in the Newman Haas Lola 4, teammate to Michael Andretti, of course. The Brazilian, nephew of the great Emerson Fittipaldi, champion in this series himself, but Christian, just the one race victory to his name.
Now let me tell you, Michael Andretti came out of the pits. Last time around was 23.2, this time was 23.4. Juan Montoya, meanwhile, still running those same laps. 23.7, 23.8 now. He's been running for the last 10 or 15 laps. We said earlier on he's running 23.5s, 23.6s. That's dropped off just a little bit to 23.7s and 23.8s. So is that going to be significant? The gap he held over Mikey as he came into the pit stall, as Mikey came into the pits, was about 2 seconds.
Christian Fittipaldi coming back out and slowing down one or two other cars perhaps as they came onto the track, so that was all a little bit confusing as we take a look at a replay here of Christian Fittipaldi's stop. Excellent angle from down behind the car. You can really see the pit crew at work here, and the hose was still attached. I see, that was the problem. Hose, the breather hose that was still attached to the top of the car when he set off. So that could be a problem. And Tracy, we gather, has made some mistake in the pits. I think maybe come in too fast. Paul Tracy, some sort of pit entry violation has been reported, and that means he may well be brought back into the pits. Now we hear that what it was, he did not have four wheels across the line when he came into the pits. Well, in fact, it had to be two wheels over that line coming into the pits. It had to be four wheels coming out of the pits, so we'll have to confirm that that was what the mistake was, but Cart did express that in the driver's briefing, and I think Paul Tracy has come into the pits again there for his drive-through penalty.
Oh, that'll be absolutely crucial there. What a crusher that will be for Paul Tracy. He did not need that. There's Mauricio Gugelmin having a great run. He was running in third place before he came into the pits.
Championship leader then, Paul Tracy in trouble. Mauricio Gugelmin, a full tank of fuel on that car, and he gets hurt again, but he will lose a lot of ground, of course, from being in third place. But what a bad day for Paul Tracy. He'd been running well up in the top six all day, and now that drive-through penalty will drop him way down the order.
I wonder, last lap around Montoya, 23.5, so that's a good lap. That's just a little bit quicker than Michael Andretti. So he's really having to push hard now, is Juan Montoya, and it's helped in that by Dario Franchitti there on his tail. Dario Franchitti, of course, has made his final pit stop. He's actually, in fact, 2 laps behind Montoya at this stage, but that will change when Montoya comes into the pits.
Just looking over to the right here on the replay of Tracy coming in. Gugelmin slid in, didn't he? Yes. Don't know if he actually hit anybody, but very nearly had it locked up coming into the pits there over by the wall. So Gugelmin perhaps a little lucky to get away with that. Montoya still out there. 167 laps completed. That was a look at Paul Tracy coming in earlier on, I think. That was when he made the initial mistake. Down right to the very end of the pit lane. This is vital. Is Montoya going to take his first Champ Car win of the season, having taken 7 victories last year? Still looking for the elusive first win of the year 2000. Fuel goes on board. Oh, there's a problem. There's a problem somewhere at the back there. They get him out. I don't know what went wrong that time, but what is happening to this man? He seems to have all the bad luck. Our new leader, though, is Adrian Fernandez, due to come into the pit fairly soon.
Back to kart with Honda.
As we watch Adrian Fernandez come through, followed by Dario Franchitti, but Franchitti actually down in 8th position. And we've got a crash down in turn 2, apparently. Someone in the wall, that's Tarso Marquez, who has swiped the right-hand side of his car. And this brings out only the 2nd caution of the day so far, but that looks like it was a pretty heavy hit for the Brazilian.
Well, that's great news for Adrian Fernandez and bad news for Jimmy Vasser. Vasser came in right before that caution came out. Fernandez now will be able to wait until they pack up behind the pace car and make his pit stop under yellow. So great strategy once again by Patrick Racing. Jim McGee and the guys there, just phenomenal strategy. He'll fall to the back end of the lead lap when he has to come onto pit lane.
Fernandez coming into the pits right now to make his pit stop under yellow flag conditions, exactly what he wanted, and he will then rejoin the fray once again.
That's right, and also farther back there, Kenny Breck and Roberto Moreno actually swapped positions just a lap before the caution came out. Breck able to find a way past Moreno, so they will be on the lead lap as well for this restart. So there is Mike Sell's crew and the Patrick Racing guys. Another good clean stop for them, and away goes Adrian Fernandez. He'll fall down to probably 7th place. Yeah, no, probably not even that actually, because there's 2 other guys on there. There's also Breck and Moreno, so it'll probably be top 4.
All right, here we go, Jeremy. They're all about to go. The pace car heading into the pits, and Montoya about to lead them out of turn number 4. He's got the lap car of Gutermin directly behind him, and then Michael Andretti, who runs in 2nd place, coming under pressure from Jimmy Vasser. Vasser is a lap down, but wants to get back with the leaders. Can't quite find a way past Michael Andretti. Behind Vasser is Gilles de Ferran, who is in 3rd position, and behind him, Patrick Carpentier in 4th place. But Montoya getting away very quickly on the restart and trying to establish an early lead again as we head with about just 30 laps to go here at Milwaukee, and Montoya now into the critical phase of this race. The rest of the field across the line. There is Adrian Fernandez, who
I'm not quite sure what happened to Adrian. He lost a lot of positions there at that restart. He fell all the way from 5th down to 10th.
Yeah, something went wrong there. We may have a view there of what happened to Adrian Fernandez. Oh, he got a little wide down there at turn 1 and 2. Very wide indeed, in fact. The top team at the moment is this one, and there's the team boss, Chip Ganassi, watching.
Yeah, and Montoya still 4.6 seconds clear of Michael Andretti, but Michael Andretti is beginning to come under pressure now from Gilles de Ferran, who has certainly reduced the gap there. It was fairly significant, I'd say it's certainly much more than a second and a half or so, only 2 or 3 laps ago, and now just about 10 car lengths between the 2nd and 3rd place cars.
So we still have a fight for 2nd, even if we don't seem to have much of a battle for the lead here, as Montoya continues to dominate. He took pole position, and he's led just about most of this race. He lost the lead in the middle section of the race when we saw Adrian Fernandez up front on a different fuel stop strategy. But look at this battle for 2nd beginning to open up. Michael Andretti in 2nd at the moment, and Gilles de Ferran chasing him down. Last couple of laps have been a little bit quicker than Michael, but now he's into the slipstream. Is he going to be able to find a way past? Well, we're hearing that Gilles may have to make an extra pit stop, and it looks as though he is. Look, he's coming in.
And you know, that's the 3rd time this year that either conservative strategy or for poor fuel consumption, call it what you will, has cost Gilles de Ferran. Both at Homestead and at Rio, wasn't it? Was it Rio or Motegi? Rio, wasn't it? Long Beach, I beg your pardon. Each time there, he came in early for his first pit stop, was then a caution shortly thereafter, and that cost him any chance of a win. And once again here, it's cost him, coming in for that extra pit stop, whereas the other leaders do not need to make an extra pit stop. I was talking to both LeFerrin and Penske earlier this weekend, and they said in those first 2 races, it wasn't poor fuel consumption, it was conservative strategy. Well, if it's, you can't afford to be conservative in this series. It is so close. close. You have to go absolutely flat out.
7, nada más.
Limit of whatever the limit is.
Sprint final.
That is going to cost Gilda Ferran.
What a shame after the win last week.
Metiendo desde que comenzó el año.
Ferran regresó en la posición número 12.
But it's not to be. That's moved a few other people up. Kenny Breck and Moreno are now battling over 4th place, of course. Just 6 laps to go now as Montoya crosses the line once again. Andretti still in 2nd place. Carpentier now in 3rd position and looking for a podium finish here today. Kenny Breck in 4th, Moreno in 5th, and then Dario Franchitti holding on to 6th position. And De Ferran has now dropped all the way down to 12th place, the final point scoring position. Just 1 point in prospect instead of some 14 points if he'd finished in 3rd place. So big disappointment there for Gilles de Ferran.
Major disappointment, as I said, as close as this series is, as close as it's going to be when you get down to the stretch when you can't afford to give away that many points. He's given away a lot already this season. That's bad news, bad strategy, and that's very, very unusual for Roger Penske. I'd say either bad strategy or Gilles de Ferran, for some reason, just to not get the same fuel consumption as the other Honda contenders.
Well, that's something that I think we've seen a little bit in the past, actually, Jeremy. When he was at Walker Racing, he tended to use perhaps a little more fuel than some of the others on some occasions, but it is something that they can adjust both through driving style and how they set the engines up, so I'm sure Penske will be working hard on that in the coming races. Just 3 laps to go now for Juan Montoya to take his first win of the 2000 season. Toyota must be biting their nails at the moment as it looks as though their first victory is heading their way. It's been a long campaign in the early days of Toyota engine development. They were almost the laughing stock of the paddock. The engines were blowing up left, right and centre. Sometimes they blew up when a car just was fired up down in the pit lane. But nowadays, look at the performance. And today, that fuel economy that we've seen, combined with the power in Juan Montoya's hands, has been completely dominant. We saw him fast in Japan, we saw him fast at Nazareth last week, but today he just has been pretty much in a class of his own. He's been able to control the pace, and even when Michael Andretti got past him at one stage, he just drove around him and got back in front of Andretti. The final lap for Juan Montoya, and he's heading for victory. He's going to join that list of names who won the Indy 500 one week, and then the Milwaukee Mile the following weekend. He's done it. He's going to come through and take his first win of 2000. Juan Montoya wins at Milwaukee in the postponed race. It finally comes together for the Ganassi team this year. Indy 500 victory last weekend, Milwaukee win this weekend, and don't count Montoya out for the championship now. We're not even a third of the way through the series, and at last he's got a maximum score.
Good job, man.
Montoya the winner then from Andretti, and look at Montoya, he got the point for pole, the point for most laps led, of course, a dominant performance this weekend, but a great 3rd place for Patrick Carpentier, Breck, Moreno, Franchitti scoring points this time, Papis, Fernandez, Fittipaldi, Canaan, Gugelmin, and the final point there for Gilles de Ferran.
Yeah, you see Gugelmin, he had a great run too. Unfortunately, he was a lap down there, but he was certainly running the same pace as Montoya. He gets a couple of points. It could easily have been a lot more. De Ferran there, look at that costly mistake, only 1 point instead of 14, and boy, that's going to hurt him. And on down the order there, we've got Jourdain there in 18th place. He was just 1 lap down to the leader. That's how well he was running, and only 18th place.
Tracy didn't score any points here today, so Moreno has closed up a little bit in the points chase, but watch out for Montoya now. He features in 4th place, tied with Michael Andretti. Plenty to look forward to. The next race on the calendar is Detroit. We'll be on a street track. Some street fighting action, I'm sure, as we go to Belle Isle for round 7 of the FedEx Championship Series. He's done it again! Wow!
Kart, sponsored by Honda.